had an employee quit because they were burned out and you had no idea they were doing so much work, or they quit and you didn't know why, but you found out after they left how many people it was going to take to replace them. Or maybe you've been that employee. Maybe you've been overwhelmed, your work wasn't valued, you worked really hard, you kept seeing people who work less get promoted, and you just had enough and you left. But then you still ran into the same problem at the next place. This video is for you. I was recently contacted by a former coaching client who told me that this thing that I'm going to talk about in this video should be a mandatory video for every working class person to watch, every person from a working class background to watch, because it would save them 2 to 3 decades of pain at work. So I'm going to share that video here. And if you're a people leader, even if it doesn't apply to you personally, it probably applies to your people, so it's impacting your team. So stay tuned. So this client contacted me telling me that our one session together and watching my content completely changed how she is perceived at work. And she has gone from being burned out, ready to quit, to being a value to her senior leaders and a connector between the staff and the C-suite. And that is exactly what I've been telling y'all I do. I help people translate between shop floor and executives, and I help solve the promotion pipeline problem. So here's what was happening. All of her work, she never bragged about it. She doesn't believe in bragging. It was a moral issue for her. A lot of people from working class backgrounds take issue with that, especially if they're also a woman. There are extra expectations that you do things quietly and never self-promoting. But she was getting burned out because since nobody knew what she did, she was continuously having stuff added to her plate and she felt very undervalued. She put in her 2 weeks and her senior leadership told her that what she was doing was so valuable they couldn't lose her. They did talk her into staying and she kept running to the same pattern. So get this, she actually was told by them how valuable her work was and she still wasn't telling them everything she was doing because she thought they should just notice. She shouldn't have to tell them herself. And this is very common. People from working class backgrounds are told to keep their heads down, to not ruffle any feathers, and it will be noticed. But it isn't always. It actually very rarely is. So you are waiting for something that is not going to happen. And while y'all know I am very transparent about the amount of toxic leaders out there, we also have to be realistic about that people are not mind readers and that white collar work is not the same. And yes, you can be working class and still white collar, but as you advance and as you move up, the work can become more abstract and more difficult to see. So you have to translate it. She had a hard time conveying her work to them. Why is this? Because of a class culture clash. And she didn't get out of it until she became a regular follower of my content and booked a session. After the one-on-one session with me, the thing that stuck with her in her own words was that she didn't need to go against her values. She needed to work with them. She started using my techniques of cultural blending. Her natural working class woman gender role instinct was to never brag and to do what is best for the team, but she was resentful that she was never being rewarded for it. So a question I want to ask y'all is, how selfless are you being? Are you really doing it because it's selfless if you are expecting a return? Is that really about selflessness then? Or is it a fear of something else? Is it a fear of backlash or of being cringe or of being inappropriate? I think you should get recognition for your work. So I'm not saying, oh, you're being selfish, that's bad. I'm just saying there is some irony in being like, I can't brag, it's not about me, but also, why is nobody noticing me? You see what I mean? There's a little bit of a hypocrisy in there. So what did she start doing? She started using cultural blending. She noticed that she said we a lot, which is something I talk about a lot on here. People from working class backgrounds, especially women, are more interdependent. We say we instead of I, but corporate rewards I. So she started blending both, taking credit for her ideas and still rewarding people on her team who deserved it as well. But she at least blended both. This made her look like a leader, like someone who had ideas, executed them, and had influence with other people. It also built goodwill among other people who worked with her. And she finally built up the nerve to tell her boss everything that she was doing and its impact. And to her delight, he was receptive. He didn't reprimand her. He didn't tell her she was cringe. He didn't tell her she was bragging and too big for her britches. He said, I knew you did a lot, but I had no idea it was so much. And if I had known earlier, I would have rated your performance higher, and now that I know, I can rate you higher. Music to my ears. And she said now she is in a position where she is invited into high-level meetings. She is invited into meetings that are closed to most people. She has major influence with senior leaders, and she is seen as a connector between the shop floor and the C-suite, which has so many benefits for customers, for employees, and for leadership. Because when things align in an organization, when the Russian dolls all the way up and down connect, that is when flow happens for your cash, for the people, for your customer, everything. She said that in her own words, what was once her invisible labor is now seen as her professional brand. And her working class strengths that she has moved up to the ladder are not now seen as a stigma, but seen as an asset. And that is the whole purpose of what I do. So I'm going to show you the video that she said would change the life of people who are from working class backgrounds to save you decades of pain. I'm going to go ahead and play that here. And then we're going to talk about why, whether this is your personal experience or not, you should care about this because it is inevitably happening to people in your organization. So watch this video on where does this lack of self-promotion and owning your value come from. If your ideas were worth anything and you were really that good, you wouldn't have to promote yourself online. You wouldn't have to talk about that book you wrote. You wouldn't have to drop your website link or share your accomplishments on LinkedIn or anything. It would just be noticed because hard work is always rewarded. Yeah, that's what you do if you want to be exploited and never move up. And if you want to totally put the burden on someone else to notice you that much. This is a comment, though, that was recently left on one of my videos, that if my ideas were that good, and if I really had a Ph.D., and if I really did research on the unwritten rules of work for a decade, and if I really wrote a book about it, I wouldn't have to make YouTube or TikTok videos talking about it. And I hid it even though right away somebody already commented, "Where's your book, dude?" So that people are already coming into my defense, but I hid it because I'm training my algorithm. But I appreciate y'all. But I wish I would have screenshotted it first because this is exactly the type of person who I work with, either one-on-one or in organizations who needs my help because this is a working class mindset that holds you back. Not all working class traits do hold you back. Some are very strong strengths, but this one does hold you back. That people who are from the working class are taught by their parents that if you work really hard and keep your head down and don't ruffle any feathers, that you will be rewarded for your hard work. It is because there are deep, deep meritocracy beliefs, especially among white Americans in the U.S., and it is not true. It is not what is rewarded in white-collar work, where a lot of the work can be abstract, or a lot of it happens in here, and nobody's cracking open your noggin to see what you're doing. You have to tell them. If you fixed all the cars in a record amount of time, they may be more likely to notice, but since a lot of it happened in here, you're going to have to use this. You do not self-promote in white collar. You will be given more and more work, and you will not advance. And I see this over and over again. I even see this among white men from the working class. Running a research project right now with a team on this type of work, and there is one white man on the team who is from a blue-collar background, and he already excuses himself, as they all do, from, okay, and then we could do this, but I would just be in the background. I'm not an expert, so I shouldn't. And I'm like, honey, you're one of 6 people on this project. There are 6 people who are experts on this, and you are one of them. Where is the white man audacity? Because it's not the same experience. He's the first in his family to do this type of work. Literally, everyone has to self-promote in a white-collar environment. What's different is who we allow to do it and then who we label as prideful or aggressive. It's usually women and people of color, by the way. Part of why we have a harder time naming good leaders over bad ones is because when things go well, we do not notice them because they're running smoothly. So part of why you have to self-promote when you're doing things well is because otherwise, ideally, someone wouldn't even notice because things are running so smoothly. It is a tale as old as time business to get rid of a role or a department because they have no idea what they do because they haven't had to think about them. And then they're gone and they're like, oh shit, that was important. I need to bring them back. Nobody is paying as much attention to you as you think they are until you fuck up, unfortunately. So if you're more afraid of being cringe than in advancing in your career and building a personal brand or a level of expertise, I'm not judging you. But I am saying that is a choice of prioritization. Now, this is often rooted in deeper values that may come across as being cringe, and that it is, especially for women, shamed to be about yourself. But the working class are more interdependent than the middle class and higher because with fewer resources, you share them. As I gave the example, even of one of the white men I'm working with. And so what I work with clients on doing is identifying where you can use your cultural values to your strengths and where you may need to expand your cultural toolkit to make sure you don't get taken advantage of because of them. Because where a strength can be is people who experience social class mobility are often amazing cultural translators between groups. They're connectors between people. They can relate to a lot of people, but they often get exploited, especially if you're also a woman, because they will take on more work because of the work ethic values, because they've been told that's what will be rewarded, and because that for the betterment of the group. So here's the reframe I want you to keep if you're struggling with this, is that you can't help anyone if you're invisible. You can't get the resources for your team that you need if people don't know you exist. You might even risk you or your team being eliminated if people don't know you exist. If only toxic people who are like narcissistic take up space, that is who is going to keep being promoted. There are other things at play there, but what is within your control? Where this can get out of hand, business owners, people leaders, is when there's so much individualism in a workplace that people are sabotaging each other to make sure that they are seen as better as an individual. That's not good. That is a tale as old as time, even more prevalent, is teammates sabotaging each other because the performance systems and culture only reward one person. And so instead of people encouraging new ideas and innovating and brainstorming together, they shut down anything that's not theirs, that's not their own. Examples I give in my book are Microsoft and Wells Fargo. We're seeing it right now and for the past year at Meta. Even with huge money being spent on top AI talent, they've sabotaged each other because they've been pitted against each other. And that is what people do to survive. If this resonates, check out my website. There's a link in my bio, the 2-minute quiz for people or organizations to see if you have any of the symptoms of unwritten rules impacting your career or your workplace. Do work with people one-on-one, but also look into who your organization is hiring for workshops. Something like this with individualism, it is really helpful to work with teams together. They learn how to use these skills together. See testimonials from my workshop clients on my page as well. Welcome back. So why should you care about this? I know there are going to be people in my comments, but in these toxic work environments, people just love that you don't promote yourself and they take advantage to promote themselves. Absolutely true. You must be new to my channel or my website if you don't think that I don't own that there are a lot of dark triad traits among people who seek power in organizations and in countries. Duh, frankly. So there's that group of people who they're maybe narcissistic, psychopathic, whatever. They're gonna try to take advantage. But then there are also people who are in leadership positions who they have just been, it's just been so normalized that this is how things are. Maybe they've been trained by the dark triad. Maybe it's all they've known. And then they don't know until another option is presented. And they're like, oh shit, let's do that. That's who I'm talking to, okay? Because I know they exist. I work with them. You're always going to have people who take advantage and are like, hey, I'm going to sabotage everyone else so that I can move ahead. That benefits one person, maybe, in the short term. Eventually, people come back and get sick of them. Read the 48 Laws of Power. It recommends all kinds of techniques to do that. And then notice all the examples that it gives are people who've been executed or exiled for said behavior. But if you are running a business and you don't have unlimited funds like some people do, this is going to cost you a lot of money. Because when people sabotage each other, you have duplicated efforts. You have any progress that you make gets dialed back. Lower productivity because people are having to navigate being bullied and harassed and sabotaged instead of just doing their job. There's all these reasons. So having people with interdependent values in your organization benefits you. If you have teamwork on your website, you need people with these values. Now, I'm not saying get rid of the individuals, okay? I'll give you an example of how I have used both independent and interdependent values and rewarded those on a team. So in one of my management positions, I was leading a team where one of the men would send me every Friday a summary of everything he had accomplished that week. I didn't ask him to, he just did it. But you know what? I loved it. It made my life as his manager easier, and it made his life better. He had been exploited and abused by a previous manager. I knew this. So he likely started sending those as a way to have documentation going to protect himself. He never needed it with me. He was never a problem. He was a wonderful employee, but I knew why he did it and I respected it. And documenting, if you know me, you know I encourage it and I teach it in my self-paced workplace bullying course, which is linked in my bio. It's in my school. You can go to drkarlschmidt.com/school to check that out. So he was already building this paper trail, which I already advise you to do. But more than that, it helped me. Those were the easiest performance appraisals I had to do. I already knew what he was doing. I had a brief summary every week of what he was doing so I could intervene and give live feedback as I needed to help the project stay on track, which meant my clients were happy, which meant my senior leaders were happy. This was all good. This made things so much easier for me. I wanted the whole team to do it. And so I conveyed it to them in a way that blended individual and interdependent values. I told them, hey, this is helpful for all of us. Benefits me, benefits you, benefits the whole team, so that if anybody's duplicating efforts, I can go ahead and address it and have them work on something else. Or have them work on it together, maybe save some time. When it matters to know the mechanism behind why people are doing things. Because if people are not self-promoting, if people are not telling you their value out of a fear, out of a resistance to individualism because they have interdependent values, unless you frame it in a way that addresses interdependent values, the behavior is not likely to be adopted. So by framing it as something that benefited the whole team and themselves, I was speaking to people who have maybe more individualistic beliefs and people who had interdependent beliefs, and showing them how these were not in conflict with each other. When you address things in this way, you save money in productivity, in time, in role clarity, all of those good things. Gallup estimates that turnover costs between 1/2 and 2 times someone's salary to replace them every time. If you are losing people because they're burned out, you are paying for it. And I know we're seeing a lot of layoffs in this time of AI, but we're also seeing a lot of quiet rehires because of it as well. This is a cost that is happening. There's also a cost of absenteeism. People call out sick because they're just too burned out. When people have to go on FMLA because of mental health reasons. When people find other jobs with your competitors. And when people don't know how to work together, that you may be duplicating efforts. Also, there's so much value to being a connector. I've made so many videos about this. It benefits your customers, your leadership, your staff, when there is bottom to top and top to bottom communication happening, and this only happens with connectors. This is why I'm so passionate about training. Training middle managers and directors on the unwritten rules of work, because the C-suite looks across industry, speaks strategically, but that comes across to the staff who are new and maybe less experienced as corporate jargon. Now, there could be some corporate jargon in there, but without a translation of how the strategy translates to the on-the-ground work, people don't get the meaning. And when people don't know the meaning and the purpose and what my field calls the task significance, they have lower job satisfaction, they're less likely to stay, their performance is less likely to be as good. People like having a purpose and a meaning. And yes, for the bean soupers in my comments, the purpose of the business is to make money. Sure, but how? How does it do that? That is still important to know. And this benefits leadership as well, because then when there is that bottom-up communication, when there's still someone in the middle who can translate why it matters what is being done, because even if leadership has had the experience of being on the shop floor, things may have changed with technology or the industry itself since they were on the shop floor. Having somebody who can translate why that matters is important, so that you don't get rid of an entire department that is actually driving a lot of value. They were just quiet about it, so you didn't know. So that you can make informed decisions, so that you know that the people who are front-facing with your customer, what they need and what the customers are requesting. If you do that, and these days of the major customer service drought we are having, the bar is in hell. You're already going to do way better. Now, as a time, what's one of the one things you could do to really boost business right now? Be one of the few that has good customer service. I'm so serious. I'm so serious. It is a drought out there. And that's not just my opinion. There's data on this nationally in the U.S. Look it up if you're not in the U.S. in your country. If you're not having this problem, or I would love to hear about it in the comments. What are y'all doing different? So, when you have these cultural translators, these connectors, you are in a better position strategically than people who do not have them. And I love helping people get these connectors, empower them. Oftentimes it is a simple fix. I'll be honest with you, it's not just usually one session that really speaks to the skill of this person and probably how much of my content she has consumed, but really just how that she's a really quick learner, very experienced, and was ready to make the leap. Sometimes people are just ready. Sometimes they need a little more work. As we know, it all takes, 21 days to start making a habit is the conventional wisdom. Usually it takes a little bit more. Most people I work with between 3 and 6 sessions before we really start seeing a difference. But what is that investment for going from things are so bad I'm about to leave to I am in all the major decision-making meetings. I'm in the closed door meetings. My invisible labor is seen as a unique asset. What is that worth to you? Is that worth, I think 6 sessions, so let's say you went math, would be about $1,300. You should be making way more than that in a raise that you get from going from that to that. So that one session she had with me, which one session is $247, seems like it was worth it. Granted, I cannot take full credit. I just supplied the information. She decided to apply it. She decided she was ready. She decided she was ready to go. Now, what is even better is when organizations see this and I can work with people on their teams together in a workshop. That's where the magic can really happen, when it's not just one person upskilling, but everybody. So if this resonates with you, maybe you're an individual, send it to your leaders. Send to your L&D person, send to your HR person. Maybe you have professional development funds that you can get assistance with for your one-on-one. But ideally, you can also build buy-in to have people work together so you're not the only one driving this change. Whether you're a person or an organization watching this, if it resonates with you, check out my website, drkarlschmidt.com. I'll put it in the link of the description of this video. And in 45 seconds to 2 minutes, I can diagnose what unwritten rules you're dealing with and what I would recommend. There will also be links that you can contact me in those results if you have any questions after you see them. Let me know in the comments what you think and what your questions still are. And please, if you see this and my content has influenced your workplace, please let me know. This takes a lot of time and effort. And sometimes I'm like, what am I doing? I'm a psychologist. I'm not a content creator. And so it truly, selfishly, please let me know. It does brighten my day to know that it's making an impact.